It's time to learn about Isaac Newton with Dr. Chris. Isaac Newton was a great scientist. He traveled from the past to meet Dr. Chris.
Sir Isaac Newton, what are you doing here? What was that machine? Oh, this? Well, this is a vehicle, a car. It uses energy from fuel to transfer energy to the motion. What great scientist came up with this invention? Well, actually, this is all based on your laws of motion. Without your great laws, we would still be riding around in carriages today. Hi kids, I'm Dr. Chris. Do you know who Isaac Newton is? He was one of the greatest scientists of all time. From today, I'm going to tell you about Isaac Newton's life and the laws that he created.
Isaac Newton, Isaac Newton. Let's learn with our friend Isaac Newton.
Newton was a scientist who lived in Britain more than 300 years ago. In those days, science and technology was still very underdeveloped. There were no cars or planes, no electricity or telephone. People traveled on foot or by carriage and used candles for lighting at night. Later on, with many of Newton's discoveries, the world changed a lot. That's why we say Newton is a great scientist, just like a streetlight at night shining on the roads of human development. With Newton's discoveries, scientists have since invented cars, planes, trains, and satellites. I tell you all that I have proven that gravity is universal. It is on this page. Newton was born in a farmer's family, just like many other kids. He was very little. He was so small, he could even fit into a pot. His whole family was quite worried whether he would even live. Nobody could have ever predicted that this little baby would turn into a great scientist who changed the world. Newton lived a bitter childhood. His father passed away 3 months before he was born. When Newton was 3 years old, his mom remarried and left home. Newton was raised by his grandparents until he was 11 years old. He often got bullied at school, so he would rather play by himself. Doing experiments had become a lifelong hobby for Newton, in which he also found many great science discoveries. Some of his great findings include gravity and Newton's laws of motion.
Let's learn with Dr. Chris.
Kids, from today, I will help you understand Newton's physics through many fun experiments. Our first lesson is about force. Do you know about force?
Force is very important for Newtonian physics. Newton studied force and found the laws of motion of the universe. Kids, do you know what force is?
Let's learn about force.
Hi, I'm here with my science helper, Max.
Hi.
Max, can you try to lift that weight? Do you know what you're using to lift that weight?
Force.
Force. Kids, whatever you do, you're always using a force to do your work. Let me give it a try. Whoa. How did you do that? Here, let's try something easier. This is a matchbox. Kids, do you know force? It's push or pull. Do you have any of your own examples of a pushing or pulling force? I'd love to hear them.
What is force? A. Force is a push or pull. B. Force is big or small. Answer A. Force is a push or pull. Kids, think about it. When do you use pull and when do you use push?
Kids, do you know where you can find a spring? Here's one way. You may have a pen that retracts in your house. If you open it up, you will find a small spring. Max, try to push and pull on that spring. When you pull the spring apart, do you need more force?
Yes.
That's right. The further you want the spring to go, the more force you need. And this is just like a rubber band. You can use it to measure force. Longer spring, more force.
Let's learn about force.
Kids, have you seen one of these before? It's a spring scale. You want to try? Try the bananas. Half a kilogram of bananas. The more weight you put on the end of the spring scale, the more force of gravity. If we pull more, the spring will be pulled more. Do you want to make your own spring scale?
Yeah.
Kids, if you don't have a spring in your own house, you can make your own spring scale with a rubber band. You're going to need all of these things to make a spring scale. Popsicle sticks, straw, scissors, something to hold whatever you're going to measure. We're using a mask, texter, some paper clips, and of course, a spring. To make the spring scale, you're going to need Mom or Dad's help with the first step, which is to poke a hole in the top of your popsicle stick. You can have Mom and Dad follow along. You'll need a paper clip, and you'll open one side of the paper clip like that, and take your strong rubber band and then poke that through your popsicle stick hole. Now the next step is to take your straw and you're going to cut the straw so it's the same length as the rubber band. Now you need a second paper clip. Open it up and leave the small end as a hook and make the other end as straight as you can. Now you want to stick it through here and fish out your rubber band. Okay. Now you want this rubber band to be in the middle of your paper clip. And then twist your paper clip. And then on the other end of the paper clip, you want to make a hook. And that's where we're going to hang the things we want to weigh. The final step is to take another elastic. You can wrap it around as many times as you can. Now that you've made your spring scale, we need to be able to measure things with it. You can use your mask as a basket and hang it on your spring scale. Now, in order to make accurate measurements, you're going to need to compare your scale to something that you know weighs a certain amount. Today, we're going to use rice. Take a measuring cup, fill it 1/3 of the way full. Put it on your scale. And then you want to make a mark where your scale gets pulled down to, just right underneath there. Now fill your rice cup 2/3 full. And finally, fill it to the top. now we've made a rice scale measuring device. Your spring scale is measuring how much these objects weigh in measurements of rice. Wow. To pull this rubber band requires force. It's a pulling force, and that weight is being pulled by the gravity of Earth. The bigger the weight, the more the pull, and the more force which is on the rubber band. Kids, how's your spring scale working? Are you able to use it to measure the force?
What can a spring scale measure? A. How big the force is. B. The direction of the force. Answer A. How big the force is. The measurement of the spring scale is how big the force is. Kids, have you made your spring scale?
Let's learn about force.
Do you want to play tug of war?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Ready? Force has a size, a strength, and that's what we used the spring scales to measure. The second most important thing about force is the direction. So what is the direction of your pulling force?
That way.
And my pulling force?
That way.
That's right. Kids, in order to show the direction of force, we can use straight line arrows. Max has a pulling force pointed that way, and I have a pulling force pointed this way. Try again and see the pulling force. And my pulling force?
Force can be big or small, and it also has a direction. How big the force is and the direction of the force are the two most important features of force.
In order to understand the direction and strength of the force, you can use the spring scales that you made. Here we're going to play tug of war with the spring scales. And to do that, we need another paper clip and a string that we tie to each end of the spring scale. Max is going to pull on his spring scale, and I'm going to pull on mine. Max has his at 3, I have mine at 3, and that means your force in that direction is equal to my force in this direction, and the middle stays. It's a tie, so I'm going to put my hand on it. I'm going to pull with more force than you. Now who will win?
You.
It went in my direction. And for you to win, you have to pull with more force. See? Very good.
What direction of forces are competing when playing tug of war? A. Opposite direction. B. Same direction. Answer A. Tug of war is a game of forces in two opposite directions. Kids, if you want to beat your dad playing tug of war, what should you do?
Kids, can you remember the two most important things about force? The direction and the strength. See you next time. Bye-bye. Force. Push. Pull. Spring. Spring scale. Tug of war. Direction.
Let's learn with Dr. Chris.